Hey there everybody, and welcome back to the Posture Project. As always, I'm your host, Justin Archer, aka the Posture Guy, your number one source on pain, posture, and performance. And on today's episode, we're going to be talking about rehabilitating the old versus habilitating the young. Because I know that here on thepostureguy.com, we have posture guys and gals from all age groups, young, old, middle-aged, everywhere across the board. And I know that in the past, I've talked about, how age isn't a determining factor. A lot of people believe that their knee, hip, shoulder, whatever, fill in the blank, is hurting them because they're X amount of years old. And obviously that doesn't make sense, because if someone tells me that their left knee hurts because they're 73, my question back to them is, well, how old's your right knee? That doesn't hurt. It just doesn't make sense. Or if both knees are hurting, okay, they're 73. How about your wrist or your elbows or your shoulders or other parts of your body that aren't hurting? They're the same age as your knees that are hurting. So again, it just doesn't really add up. It doesn't make sense. And so, that's kind of a point of it's okay to be old. But today I want to show you how that in some cases, it's not only okay to be old and it's not causing your pain, but there's actually a benefit you have from being 60, 70, 80, 90 plus years old. How it could actually benefit you and how fast you could realign your posture and get a pain versus a young person. If you're a younger person watching this, don't turn off quite yet. There's something for you too. But, a lot of people, when they come to me, they assume that given the choice, I would always prefer to work with a younger person, say someone 30 and under, because they assume that a younger person's body is going to respond to the therapy process faster, their posture is going to realign faster, they're going to be out of pain faster, etc., etc. And although sometimes that's true, I would have to say that over the past decade of doing this, that experience has taught me that it's usually the other way around. And I'll explain why in just a minute. But, if given the choice between two people with the same symptom, let's say, for example, left hip pain, and one was 60 years old, and the other was 30 years old. I haven't met either person. I don't know their personality types. I don't know if we get along. I don't have any context with them. All I know is, I have two people. I have to choose one to work with. One's 30, one's 60. They both have left hip pain. Which are you going to choose? You have 3 seconds to make up your mind. I'm going to go with the 60-year-old. No offense, 30-year-olds and younger people. It's just because, honestly, they're usually easier to work with. And that's for a number of reasons. Usually, when someone is 60, 65, or older, that means that they grew up during a time where there was less technology around them. And don't get me wrong, technology is great. It allows me to put out these videos for you guys and help people from anywhere in the world, wherever I am from the world, wherever they are from the world. So technology is great. But obviously, the more technology is around us, it kind of makes moving an inconvenience. It kind of says, hey, sit here, it's fine. You can bring all the information to you, or even something as simply as cooking rather than heating it up on the stove or in the oven, use a microwave. So everything is simplified and there's a lot of convenience around us, which again, at times is great. But the price we pay for that is we move less, which then means our posture is going to be worse, which means we're going to be in more pain. So usually, going back to that person who is, say, 60, 65 or older, is they grew up, they developed from children's into young adults and then into adults during a time where there wasn't as much technology around them. And therefore, they were moving more, and they developed the proper musculature and range of motion and proprioception because they used all the range of motion that their body has to offer. Now, what usually happens is as they grew up from their 20s to their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, so on and so forth, to present day, well, they live in the same world that teenagers or 20 or 30-year-olds live in, and they're starting to be surrounded by technology, smartphones, computers, tablets, things like that. And so usually as people get older, they adopt a more sedentary lifestyle, which means they start moving less and less, and then their posture, as a result of that, right, form follows function. So they function less, their form kind of suffers for it, their posture gets worse and worse and worse. They start developing, chronic pain symptoms, hip, knee, shoulder, what have you. And then that's when they come to me. Well, the great thing is that if they already have a great foundation to go off of, like I said, they grew up in, it could be the 40s, 50s, 60s, even the 70s, they have a great base to start from. And when I'm giving them exercises, it's to rehabilitate their bodies. It's to re-educate or relearn or kind of reprogram their central nervous system on how to control their muscles, tendons, ligaments, bones, joints, and everything, on how to move properly. And it's much easier to reteach someone something that they used to do well versus, let's say, if I took that 30-year-old person with the same hip pain and maybe they grew up in the late 70s, or no, let's even say, the 80s or the 90s, where now technology is all around you, and starting in the 80s, there was definitely a huge movement to, people having careers where they sit in front of a computer for a good majority of their day. Well, now that means growing up, they're not going out, they're not, riding their bikes and climbing trees and playing hopscotch and doing all those other things that the older people did growing up. That means that maybe they skipped over some of the, musculoskeletal development stages needed to have full range of motion and full capability and functionality of their bodies. Well, that's obviously going to lead to their body having to compensate in other ways that it wasn't originally designed, which is going to lead to poor posture, which is going to lead to chronic pain symptoms, which will then lead them to coming to me and saying, yeah, my, fill in the blank, whatever, hurts. In this case, we'll go with the left hip pain. And so then when I see someone, usually 30 and under, I know that, okay, there's a very good chance that this person hadn't ever developed the proper full range of motion and functionality that their body's capable of. So for them, it may require actual habilitation rather than rehabilitation for that older person. And it's definitely not impossible, but it is more challenging to teach someone or a body something completely new versus something that, your body or someone just hasn't done in a while. Think of it as it was much harder to learn to ride a bicycle for the first time ever than it was if you learned to ride a bike and then you didn't ride a bike for 10 years and you got on a bike again, right? It just, like they say, it's just like riding a bike. It just comes back naturally. So that's an example of how, and again, it's not just, okay, if you're older, you instantly are easier you're better to respond to the therapy process. That's assuming that you were active too. There's people in the that grew up in the 60s and 70s that also led sedentary lifestyles as children. Maybe they just read a lot of books and sat a lot versus going outside and playing on the swings and running in fields and climbing trees and doing that type of thing. But generally speaking, this is in one regards where I think having more years, on your side is a good thing. So the older someone is, I usually find the faster they respond to the therapy. Now, it's not to say that someone 30 and under won't respond fast as well, but it's just a different approach. Again, it's rehabilitating versus habilitating. It's reteaching the body movements versus teaching the body something new that it might have never done before. And for the people who are maybe 30 to 60, who's in that middle range, it could go either way. A lot of it just depends on, what their environment was as they were growing up. Did they choose to partake in the new technology that was coming out probably when they were growing up to be teenagers and young adults? Or did they say, that's not really for me. I'm going to continue to go play sports outdoors and play with my friends, outdoors until the dinner bell rings and I'm forced to come home. Versus someone, like Steve Jobs type who, when the first computer chip came out was like, this is amazing. I'm going to do as much as I can with it and have fun with it and sit for long periods of time. So, that 30 to 31 to, I guess you can say 59 range could go either way. But yeah, so if you're 60 or older, congrats. You kind of have a leg up on us young folk. But if you're young and in pain, you're going to do just as well, I'm sure. All right? Anyways, I hope this makes sense. I hope it kind of opens your eyes more to the possibility that, hey, just because maybe you're 60, 65, life isn't over, there is still hope. There is something you can do. And in fact, for this purpose, in this regards, being older is actually better. So Congrats. Anyways, thank you for joining me inside this video. I appreciate having you here, and I look forward to seeing you inside the next video. Until then, take care and keep moving.